That 4D sensor could cost you over $100,000. You could replace the fuel pump, ignition coils, or even the throttle body and still watch your car stall like nothing changed. The worst part: the real problem could be sitting right in front of you. Today, you're going to discover 9 cheap parts that can imitate expensive failures and turn a simple repair into a financial nightmare. Starting with number 9, the cabin air filter. It sounds almost too simple to cause trouble, and that's exactly why so many drivers forget about it. A replacement can cost around 10 to 30, but when that filter becomes packed with dust, leaves, pollen, and debris, your blower motor has to work harder to push air through it. You may notice weak airflow, strange smells, fogging windows, or an air conditioner that doesn't feel as powerful as it used to. Keep ignoring it, and you could eventually end up replacing a blower motor or dealing with other HVAC problems that cost hundreds of dollars. And if you regularly drive through dusty roads, construction areas, or heavy traffic, that filter can become clogged much faster. Check it around once a year or according to your owner's manual. Before blaming the entire AC system, look behind the glove box first. Spending $20 now is a lot better than paying hundreds later because a filter was forgotten. At number 8, the PCV valve. This little valve can cost roughly $20–60, but when it fails, the symptoms can look much more serious. The PCV system controls crankcase pressure and helps remove unwanted vapors from the engine. When the valve sticks closed, pressure can build inside the crankcase and contribute to oil leaks. When it sticks open, it can act like a vacuum leak and cause rough idling, hesitation, lean conditions, and poor drivability. That's where the expensive mistake begins. You could walk into a repair shop with an oil leak and hear about a valve cover gasket, seals, or another major repair before anyone checks the ventilation system. On some turbocharged engines, a faulty PCV system can create even more problems by allowing oil where it shouldn't be. So before approving a major oil leak repair, ask a technician to inspect the PCV valve and check crankcase ventilation. Sometimes the expensive gasket isn't the real problem. Sometimes the 20L valve caused the entire mess. Number 7 is the EVAP Purge valve. Usually costing somewhere around $40 to $90, this tiny component can create symptoms that send drivers chasing the wrong problem. A failing purge valve can cause rough idle, hesitation, hard starting, fuel vapor issues, and repeated check engine lights. Sometimes the problem appears right after filling the tank, which can make you immediately suspect the gas cap or another EVAP component. You tighten the cap, clear the warning light, and think the problem is gone. Then a few days later, that same light comes back. That's when things can get expensive. A shop might start looking at the charcoal canister, fuel vapor lines, or other EVAP components, potentially turning a relatively cheap repair into a much bigger bill. The correct move is diagnosis, not guessing. The purge valve should be tested for proper operation, and the system should be checked for leaks using the appropriate procedure. A check engine light is a clue. It is not a shopping list. Don't let a $50 valve convince you to replace half the EVAP system. At number 6, we have something that can make an electronic problem look much worse than it really is. Carbon buildup around the throttle body. You might think the throttle body is failing when the actual issue is simply heavy contamination around the throttle plate. Over time, oil vapor and deposits can collect inside the intake system, especially around the area where the throttle plate opens and closes. The result can be rough idle, hesitation, inconsistent throttle response, or even stalling when you slow down. Those symptoms can easily make you suspect a bad throttle position sensor, vacuum leak, or complete electronic throttle body failure. A replacement throttle body can cost hundreds of dollars, while some vehicles may only need proper cleaning and a required relearn procedure. But don't treat every throttle body the same. Electronic throttle systems can have manufacturer-specific procedures, and using the wrong cleaner or forcing the plate can cause damage. Before buying an expensive assembly, ask whether there is visible buildup, whether the commanded and actual throttle positions match, and whether the vehicle needs a throttle or idle relearn. Sometimes the computer isn't the problem. Sometimes the evidence is sitting right there under a layer of carbon. Number 5 is the radiator cap. Yes, the cap. The part many drivers barely think about can cost around $15 to $30, yet it plays an important role in your cooling system. The radiator cap is designed to maintain the pressure the cooling system requires. which helps raise the coolant's boiling point. When the cap can no longer hold pressure, coolant can escape, the reservoir can behave strangely, and the engine can begin showing overheating symptoms. Suddenly you're thinking about a thermostat, water pump, radiator, or even a head gasket. Those repairs can quickly reach hundreds or thousands of dollars. But before jumping straight to the worst-case scenario, the cooling system and cap need to be properly tested. A pressure test can reveal whether the system is holding pressure, while the cap itself can also be tested. Of course, never ignore genuine overheating. Continuing to drive an overheating engine can turn a small cooling problem into catastrophic engine damage. But if the diagnosis hasn't been confirmed, don't let a 20 of cap disappear from the conversation. Sometimes the smallest part in the cooling system can create the biggest panic. Now we're getting into the repairs that really scare drivers. At number 4, the transmission shift solenoid. The solenoid itself may cost roughly $30 to $150, but the symptoms can make you believe your entire transmission is finished. You might feel harsh shifts, delayed engagement, gear hunting, slipping behavior, or even limp mode. And once a transmission starts behaving badly, it's easy to imagine a $2,000, $3,000, or $4,000 repair. But stop before approving a rebuild or replacement. A transmission problem needs a proper diagnosis. That means checking diagnostic codes, fluid condition, electrical circuits, solenoid operation, and the manufacturer's testing procedures. A failed solenoid can sometimes be the reason the transmission is behaving like a much larger mechanical failure. The important question isn't, how much is a new transmission? It's, what exactly failed? Your transmission may not be dead. A small electrically controlled valve could simply be causing the chaos. At number 3, the coolant temperature sensor. This is where a part costing roughly $20 to $40 can make a healthy engine look seriously sick. Your engine computer depends on temperature information to control fuel mixture, idle strategy, cooling fan operation, and other functions. If the sensor starts reporting the wrong temperature, the computer can make decisions based on completely false information. You might get hard cold starts, rough running, poor fuel economy, unusual fan behavior, or a temperature gauge that suddenly scares you. And that last symptom can trigger the biggest panic of all. You see the temperature reading climb and immediately start thinking about a blown head gasket or major engine damage. Before going there, the actual coolant temperature needs to be checked and compared with what the sensor is reporting. The sensor, wiring, connectors, and cooling system should all be tested before condemning the engine itself. A bad sensor can make your dashboard tell a terrifying story that isn't actually happening. Don't let a 30 component convince you that your engine needs a $2,000 repair. Number 2 is the downstream oxygen sensor, and this one can become brutally expensive if it gets misdiagnosed. The sensor itself might cost around $40 to $80. But one of its common trouble codes can make drivers immediately think about the catalytic converter. And that's where the money starts disappearing. A catalytic converter replacement can cost hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on the vehicle. But a sensor problem isn't automatically a catalytic converter problem. Wiring issues, exhaust leaks, sensor failures, or other engine conditions can produce similar symptoms and codes. That's why simply reading a code and replacing the most expensive component is such a dangerous approach. The code tells you where the system detected a problem. It doesn't always tell you which part failed. Before approving a catalytic converter replacement, make sure the oxygen sensor, wiring, exhaust system, and related conditions have been properly tested. Because if the real problem is a 6D sensor, replacing a 2000 or 1000 converter is one of the most painful mistakes you can make. And now number 1. The camshaft position sensor. This is the kind of part that can turn a simple diagnostic problem into a garage full of unnecessary repairs. A camshaft position sensor can cost roughly to $25 to $55, but when it starts failing, your car can stall, struggle to start, run rough, lose power, or shut down unexpectedly. And here's where the trap becomes expensive. A driver sees a car that keeps stalling and starts thinking fuel pump. Someone else suspects ignition coils. Another diagnosis points toward the throttle body. Parts start getting replaced, the bill keeps climbing, and the car still has the same problem. Meanwhile, that small sensor may still be sitting there, sending an unreliable signal to the engine computer. That's why the camshaft sensor should not be treated as a random guess either. The sensor, wiring, connector, camshaft and crankshaft signals, and related diagnostic data all need to be checked properly. If the engine computer isn't receiving the timing information it needs, expensive parts can get blamed for a problem they never caused. Remember the opening of this video. That 40 sensor could be the difference between a sensible repair and a 4-figure mistake. If you liked this video, subscribe to the channel for more money-saving car tips. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. And let me know if you've ever paid for an expensive repair that turned out to be something surprisingly small. Your experience could help another driver avoid making the exact same mistake.